Lucas Sterling believed his disguise was flawless. In scuffed work boots and a faded flannel jacket, the billionaire CEO looked nothing like the owner of a nationwide restaurant empire quietly inspecting one of his own locations. He slid into a corner booth expecting mediocre service, maybe cold fries, maybe a rude server. What he didn't expect was a warning that could cost lives. When the exhausted waitress, Maya, set his steak in front of him, she didn't just serve dinner. With trembling fingers, she slipped a crumpled napkin beneath his hand. 5 words, scrawled in red ink, made his blood run cold. Words that hinted at a criminal conspiracy far more dangerous than a simple kitchen violation. Outside, rain pounded against the cracked pavement surrounding the Golden Steer, a steakhouse that had once been the crown jewel of the Sterling Hospitality Group. Now it looked like a wounded animal, waiting for the final blow. The neon sign flickered erratically. The S had burned out, leaving it to read the Golden Tier. Lucas tugged the collar of his grease-stained canvas jacket high around his neck. The outfit was deliberate. To the public, Lucas Sterling was the 32-year-old prodigy who had inherited his father's empire. Man seen only in tailored Italian suits splashed across the covers of Forbes and Fortune. Tonight, though, he was just Luke, a worn-down construction worker looking for a hot meal. He pushed through the heavy oak doors. The smell hit him immediately, and it wasn't the rich aroma of searing beef and rosemary he remembered. Instead, it was stale grease mixed with harsh floor cleaner. The dining room was dim, clearly meant to disguise the peeling wallpaper and stained carpet. Sit anywhere. Someone will get to you eventually. A voice barked from the hostess stand. Lucas glanced up to see a man in a wrinkled suit leaning against the podium, scrolling through his phone. Derek Vance, the branch manager. Lucas recognized him instantly from the personnel files. On paper, Derek was a miracle worker, somehow keeping labor costs impossibly low. In person, he looked like a man who hacked away at corners with a machete. "Thanks," Lucas muttered, roughening his voice. He chose a booth near the kitchen swing door's strategic placement. He needed to hear what was happening in the back. As he slid into the vinyl seat, he noticed a strip of duct tape holding the cushion together. His jaw tightened. His father, Arthur Sterling, would have fired the entire management team for something like that alone. "I'll be right with you," a breathless voice called out. A young woman rushed past, balancing a tray stacked with dirty dishes. This was Maya. She was petite, dark hair pulled into a messy bun that looked like it hadn't been adjusted all day. Her uniform was clean but frayed at the cuffs. Where Derek radiated indifference, Maya radiated desperation. Lucas watched her work. In under a minute, she cleared a 6-top, wiped it down, and reset the silverware. She was doing the work of 3 people. "Maya, move it." Derek shouted across the dining room without lifting his eyes from his phone. "Table 4's been waiting 5 minutes for their drinks. You want me to dock your tips again?" Maya flinched, shoulders tensing as if she expected to be hit. "No, Mr. Vance, I'm sorry. The soda machine's jamming again. Fix it or I replace you. There's a line of girls outside waiting for this job." Derek sneered. Cold anger surged through Lucas's chest. His fingers curled around the edge of the table. He hated bullies. He hated bad management. Derek Vance was both. Maya hurried over moments later, a plastic menu tucked under her arm. Up close, Lucas noticed the dark circles beneath her eyes. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "I'm so sorry about the wait." "Sir," she said softly, sincerity clear in her voice as she carefully set down a glass of water without spilling a drop. "It's a busy night." The restaurant was barely at 20% capacity. It wasn't busy. She was overwhelmed. "No worries," Lucas replied, studying her face. "You running the floor alone?" Maya gave a tight, practiced smile. "Just short-staffed tonight. It happens. Can I start you with an appetizer?" "The calamaris." "Well, The mozzarella sticks are safer. Lucas raised an eyebrow. Safer was a strange word to use. I'm starving, he said, opening the sticky menu. Been hauling concrete all day. I'll take the biggest steak you've got, the cowboy ribeye, medium rare. Maya's expression changed instantly. The customer service mask slipped, replaced by genuine panic. She glanced nervously toward the manager's podium, then back at Lucas. The ribeye, she repeated, her voice dropping to a whisper. Sir, are you sure? The chicken sandwich is really good. Or the salad. I want the steak, Lucas insisted, leaning forward. He needed to see the quality of their flagship product. The ribeye was the benchmark by which Sterling hospitality measured itself. Why is there a problem with it? Maya bit her lip. Her eyes flicked nervously around the dining room again. She looked terrified. No problem, she said quickly. It's a $40 steak. The chicken's only $12. She thought he couldn't afford it. She was trying to save him money. It was kind but completely misplaced. I've got the cash, Lucas said calmly, patting his pocket. Bring me the ribeye. And a side of mashed potatoes. Maya hesitated for a long moment, staring at him with eyes that seemed to be screaming a warning she wasn't allowed to say out loud. Finally she nodded, defeated. Okay, she whispered. One cowboy ribeye. I'll put that in. She turned toward the kitchen, her steps slow and heavy. Lucas watched her go, his eyes narrowing. Something was deeply wrong. The air inside the restaurant felt thick, suffocating like it was packed with secrets. He slipped his phone out beneath the table and opened a recording app. Time to see what you're hiding. Derek, he muttered from his seat near the kitchen doors. Lucas could hear everything. The swinging doors were thin, and the argument inside was loud. He wants the ribeye, Maya pleaded. Derek, we can't serve that. The shipment from Tuesday was sent back, remember? The cooler's been above temperature for 2 days. Shut your mouth, Maya, Derek snapped. His voice had a wet, ugly edge to it. I'm not throwing away $400 worth of inventory because a thermometer's acting up. Cook it, but it smells sour, Maya argued. If he gets sick, he could sue. He's just a working guy. He probably saved up all week for this. If you don't run that plate, you're fired, Derek hissed. And I'll make sure you don't get a reference. How are you going to pay for your mom's meds then, huh? Go on. Walk out. Silence followed. Lucas felt the blood drain from his face. Her mom's meds. Derek was blackmailing his employees into serving spoiled food. This wasn't incompetence anymore. This was criminal negligence. Lucas stared down at the table, forcing himself to stay calm. If he stormed into the kitchen now, he'd blow his cover before uncovering the full truth. He needed proof. He needed the steak on the table. 10 minutes passed. Lucas watched Derek pace near the bar, laughing with the bartender, completely unconcerned that he might be poisoning a customer. Finally, the kitchen doors swung open. Maya emerged carrying a large oval plate. From a distance, the steak looked perfect, thick, neatly seared, grill marks crisp, herb butter melting across the top. But as she came closer, Lucas saw her hands shaking so badly the silverware rattled against the plate. She stopped at the table, but didn't look at him. Her face was pale, her jaw clenched tight. Here you go, she said flatly. The cowboy ribeye. She set the plate down. The smell was wrong, overpowered. The garlic butter was aggressive, clearly meant to mask something. Lucas picked up his knife and fork, preparing to cut into the steak to inspect the center. Can I get you anything else? Maya asked loudly, making sure Derek could hear. He was watching from across the room. Some sauce, Lucas replied. Right away. She reached into her apron and pulled out a bottle of A1. As she placed it on the table, her hand lingered over his for just a split second. Lucas felt the scratch of paper against his skin. She slipped a folded white cocktail napkin into his palm, shielding the movement with her body so Derek couldn't see. Then she pulled her hand away instantly. "Enjoy your meal," she said, her voice trembling. She turned and hurried off toward the restrooms. Looking like she might be sick, Lucas sat perfectly still, his hand covering the napkin, his heart pounding. He waited until Derek turned away to yell at the bartender. Slowly, carefully, Lucas unfolded the napkin in his lap. The message was written in red ink, likely from a pen she kept in her apron. The handwriting was jagged and rushed out. "Do not eat. The meat is expired. The manager doctored the dates. If you eat this, you will end up in the hospital. Please don't tell him I told you. He will destroy me. Just say you changed your mind and leave." A chill ran down Lucas's spine. And it had nothing to do with the cold dining room. This woman threatened with unemployment, desperate to pay for her sick mother's medication, had just risked everything to protect a stranger. Lucas looked back at the steak. Now that he studied it closely, he could see the gray tint around the edges where the sear hadn't fully covered the meat. It was rot. His hand tightened around the fatty napkin. This wasn't just about saving the business anymore. This was personal. Lucas checked his watch. He had the recorded argument. He had the spoiled food. He had the note, but he wasn't finished. He raised his hand. "Hey," he called out, his voice steady. "Manager." Derek looked up, clearly irritated. He straightened his cheap tie and sauntered over, an oily, fake smile spreading across his face. "Is everything to your liking, sir?" Lucas glanced at Derek, then at the steak, and finally locked eyes with the manager. "The steak," Lucas said, his voice dropping an octave as he summoned the authority he normally reserved for boardrooms. "Smells funny." Derek's smile didn't falter, but his eyes hardened. "I assure you, sir, our beef is USDA prime, freshly cut today. Perhaps you're just not accustomed to high-quality aged beef." The insult was subtle but sharp in implication that Lucas was too poor or unrefined to recognize good food. "I know what rot smells like," Lucas replied, pushing the plate forward. "I want a refund, and I want to see the date on the box this came from." Derek let out a cold, dismissive laugh. "Look, buddy. You ordered it, you pay for it. I don't show inventory to customers. Eat it, or pay and leave. Those are your options. I'm not running a charity for scammers looking for a free meal." "I'm not eating this," Lucas said, standing up. At 6'2", even in work boots, he towered over Derek. "Then I'm calling the cops," Derek spat. "Theft of services. You really think the police are going to believe a guy who looks like a hobo over the manager of a sterling restaurant?" Lucas smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Actually," Lucas said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out his wallet, "I think the police will be very interested in what I have to say." He didn't pull out cash. He pulled out a black titanium credit card, limitless, exclusive, the kind only a handful of people on the planet possessed. "But before we call them," Lucas continued calmly, "why don't we call the owner?" Derek sneered. "The owner? Mr. Sterling doesn't have time for the likes of you." "Oh," Lucas said evenly, "I make time for myself." He reached up and peeled off the scruffy fake beard, the theatrical glue releasing with a faint tug. Then he removed the beanie, revealing his unmistakable dark hair. Derek's face drained of color in an instant, red to chalk white. He stumbled backward, bumping into the table behind him. "Mr. Sterling." Derek choked. Lucas slammed the red-ink napkin onto the table. "You're fired, Derek," Lucas said flatly. "And you're not just unemployed. I'm going to make sure you're prosecuted." But when Lucas turned to look for Maya, she was gone. The kitchen doors swung back and forth, and the rear exit stood open, leading into the rain-soaked alley. She had run. The silence that settled over the golden steer after Maya's escape was heavier than the humid air outside. The remaining diners froze mid-bite, forks hovering halfway to their mouths. Sensing the sudden shift in the room, Lucas Sterling stood at the center of the dining room. The red-inked napkin clenched in his fist like a weapon. Derek, the man who had played king just minutes earlier, was now visibly shaking. Sweat poured down his receding hairline as his eyes darted between Lucas and the front door, clearly calculating whether he could make a run for it. "Mr. Sterling," Derek stammered, his voice cracking. I had no idea it was you. If I'd known, I would have personally prepared a fresh cut. This is all just a misunderstanding. A joke. Yes, just a hazing ritual for the new girl." Lucas didn't blink. He walked slowly toward Derek, his heavy work boots thudding against the sticky carpet, each step echoing like a judge's gavel. "A joke?" Lucas said quietly. "You think serving rotting meat to a paying customer is a joke? You think blackmailing your staff with their livelihood is funny?" "I never," Derek began, but Lucas cut him off. "I heard everything, Derek." Lucas raised his phone. "I recorded everything. I heard you threaten Maya. I heard you admit the cooler was broken. And I have this." He held up the napkin. "This piece of paper is the only reason I'm not in an ambulance right now." Before Derek could invent another lie, flashing blue lights washed over the restaurant's front windows. Derek had called the police earlier, hoping to have Lucas arrested for refusing to pay. Now that decision was about to catastrophically backfire. 2 officers entered, shaking rain from their uniforms. "We got a call about a disturbance," said the older officer, a sergeant with tired eyes. "Customer refusing to pay." He scanned the room. Derek opened his mouth, ready to spin his version of events. But Lucas stepped forward. The change was instant. He wasn't Luke, the construction worker, anymore. He stood with the posture of a man who owned skyscrapers. "Officers," Lucas said, his voice firm but respectful. "I am Lucas Sterling, CEO of Sterling Hospitality. I own this establishment." He produced his identification along with the black titanium card. The sergeant raised an eyebrow, glancing from the ID to Lucas's scruffy clothes. "Mr. Sterling, we've seen you on the news." "What's going on here?" "I was conducting an undercover inspection," Lucas explained, gesturing toward the table. "This man, my former manager, attempted to serve me spoiled meat. When I refused, he threatened me. I'd like to file a formal report for criminal negligence and endangerment. I also want the health department here tonight." Derek made a strangled sound. "You can't do that. I have rights." You have the right to remain silent," the sergeant cut in smoothly, already stepping toward him. "Sir, I'm going to need you to step outside with us while we sort this out." As the officers escorted a sputtering, red-faced Derek out of the building, Lucas turned to the rest of the staff. The bartender, a young man named Toby, looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. The hostess hovered behind her podium, pale and frozen. "Lock the doors," Lucas ordered, his voice softening just a touch. "We're closed for the night. No one eats here until this place is scrubbed from top to bottom." Toby scrambled to flip the sign to close and lock the entrance. Lucas headed for the kitchen. Pushing through the swinging doors. It was a nightmare. Grease coated the hoods. The air was thick with the stench of sour milk and old meat. It was a betrayal of everything his father had built. But right now, Lucas didn't care about the grease. He cared about the woman who had run out into the rain. He stepped into the small, cramped manager's office at the back. It was a pigsty. Papers littered every surface, and an open laptop displayed a sports betting site. Derek had been gambling while his restaurant rotted from the inside out. Lucas sat at the desk and logged into the employee database. He needed to find her. Maya Cross. Age, 26. Position, server. Start date, 8 months ago. He scanned her file. 3 write-ups, all signed by Derek. Insubordination. Refused to upsell expired wine. Tardiness, 2 minutes late. Attitude, questioned authority. A fresh wave of rage surged through Lucas. These weren't disciplinary actions. They were badges of honor. She had been fighting this battle alone for months. His eyes dropped to the emergency contact section. Name: Clara Cross, mother address 404 Oak Street. APT 2BTH, East End. A neighborhood known for high crime, crumbling buildings, and forgotten people. 40 minutes from the restaurant. Lucas pulled out his phone and dialed his personal assistant. She was probably asleep, but she answered on the second ring. "Mr. Sterling?" "Natalie, wake up the legal team," Lucas said, scrolling through the photos he'd taken of the kitchen. "I'm shutting down the Golden Steer on 5th. I want a forensic audit of Derek's accounts. I think he's been embezzling maintenance funds. And get our best cleaning crew down here. I want this place gutted." "Consider it done," Natalie replied. "Where are you going?" "I need to apologize to someone," Lucas said, standing. "And I need to make sure she doesn't do anything stupid." He grabbed a sleek black umbrella from the corner of the office, likely the only thing Derek had actually purchased with company money, and headed for the back door. Maya's purse was still in her locker. He could see it through the wire mesh. She had run without her keys, her wallet, or her coat. She was out there in the freezing rain, thinking she had lost everything, when in reality, she was the only thing in this building that mattered. Outside, the rain had turned into a torrential downpour, smearing the city's neon lights into streaks of color across the windshield of Lucas's SUV. He had called his driver to bring the car around, abandoning the beat-up truck he'd used for his cover. He needed speed and safety now. As the SUV navigated the pothole-riddled streets of the East End, Lucas studied the neighborhood. It was a stark contrast to the polished avenues of the financial district. Broken streetlights, trash piled at corners, buildings hunched together as if for warmth. "This is the address, sir," the driver said, pulling up to a crumbling brick apartment complex. A rusted sign out front read Oak Street. Gardens. There was no garden, only mud and a chain-link fence. Lucas stepped out of the SUV, the umbrella shielding him from the pounding rain. His eyes immediately caught a figure sitting on the front stoop beneath the shallow overhang. It was Maya. She was soaked through, her uniform plastered to her trembling body. Her knees were pulled tight to her chest, her head buried in her arms. She couldn't get inside. She didn't have her keys. Lucas's heart clenched. He approached slowly, careful not to startle her. "Maya," he called gently. She flinched hard, her head snapping up. Her eyes were wide with terror, red and swollen from crying. When she saw Lucas, clean-shaven now, dressed in the spare suit he kept in the car, holding a massive umbrella, she didn't recognize him at first. Then she looked at his eyes. Realization slammed into her. "You," she whispered, scrambling backward until her shoulders hit the graffiti-covered door. "You're the guy, the construction worker." "My name is Lucas," he said calmly, stopping a few feet away to give her space. He angled the umbrella so it covered her instead of himself. Rain immediately soaked his expensive suit jacket, but he didn't care. "I brought you your purse." He held out her worn leather bag. Maya stared at it, then at him. She didn't take it. Her whole body shook violently, her teeth chattering. "Did Derek send you?" She stammered. "Is he suing me?" "I didn't mean to. I just didn't want you to get sick. Please, I can't go to jail. My mom, she needs me." "Derek isn't suing anyone," Lucas said firmly. "Derek is currently explaining to the police why he was running a health hazard. He's fired, Maya." She blinked, rainwater dripping from her lashes. "Fired?" "I own the company," Lucas said simply. "I was undercover. And you saved me." Maya let out a short, hysterical laugh and pressed her hands to her face. "You're Lucas Sterling," she said breathlessly. "The billionaire." "Unfortunately," Lucas replied with a faint smile. "But right now, I'm just a guy who doesn't want you catching pneumonia. Please take your keys. Go inside." She reached out with a trembling hand and took the purse. Her fingers fumbled with the keys, dropping them twice before finally unlocking the heavy metal door. She pushed it open, then hesitated and looked back at him. "Why are you here?" she asked softly. "You fired him. You're the boss. Why did you come all the way out here?" "Because I read your file," Lucas said. "I saw the write-ups. I saw that you were the only person in that building with any integrity. And I know about the medicine." Maya went still. Her expression hardened as a defensive wall snapped into place. "I don't need charity," she said quickly. "I can work. I'll find another job tomorrow." "This isn't charity," Lucas replied. "It's a debt. You saved me from a hospital trip. You probably saved my brand from a massive lawsuit, too. Let me come in just for a minute. I want to talk to you properly, out of the rain." She studied him, searching for any hint of deception. She found only concern. Slowly, she nodded and held the door open. The building smelled of boiled cabbage and mildew. They climbed 2 flights of stairs in silence. Maya unlocked the door to apartment 2B. Inside, Lucas was surprised by how clean it was. The space was tiny, a main room with a kitchenette and a small bedroom, but it was neat and warm. Colorful throws covered the worn furniture, and framed photographs lined the walls. "Who is it, honey?" A weak voice called from the bedroom. "It's just me." "Mom," Maya answered instantly, her voice shifting into something bright and cheerful. "I brought a friend." She motioned for Lucas to sit on the sofa, then disappeared into the bedroom. He heard quiet murmuring. A moment later, Maya returned, changed into an oversized t-shirt and sweatpants, her hair wrapped in a towel. "She's sleeping most of the time," Maya said, settling into the armchair across from him. Now that she was warm, exhaustion crept into every line of her face. "She has advanced COPD and heart failure. The meds Derek was talking about, it's an inhaler and a heart stabilizer. $800 a month without insurance." Lucas felt a hollow drop in his stomach. "And Derek held your job over your head because of that?" She nodded, staring at her hands. "He knew I couldn't lose the insurance. He made me work double shifts, skip breaks, cover for him when he went to the track. He said if I complained, he'd fire me for theft and fight the unemployment claim. I felt trapped." "You were trapped," Lucas corrected gently. "By a predator." His gaze moved around the apartment. He noticed the stack of unpaid bills on the counter. The empty prescription bottles lined up neatly on the side table like soldiers. "Maya," Lucas said quietly, "I'm going to make this right." She looked up. "You're not fired," he continued. "In fact, you're promoted." "I need someone I can trust to help me clean up that restaurant," Lucas said. "I want to make you the assistant manager." Maya's head snapped up. "What?" "I don't know how to manage. I'm just a waitress." "You know more about how that place actually runs than Derek ever did," Lucas replied calmly. "You know the inventory, the customers, the problems. I can teach you spreadsheets. I can't teach integrity." Maya stared at him, hope battling skepticism in her eyes. "Assistant manager," Lucas continued, with a significant raise. "Full benefits that start immediately, retroactive to your original start date. That means we'll reimburse you for the medication you've already paid for out of pocket." Her lower lip trembled. Tears welled up again, but this time they weren't from fear. "Why?" she asked softly. "You don't even know me." "I know you slipped a warning to a stranger to save him," Lucas said quietly, "even though it could have cost you everything. That tells me everything I need to know." Suddenly, a loud, racking cough tore through the apartment, wet, painful, frightening. Maya jumped to her feet. "Mom!" She ran into the bedroom. Lucas followed and stopped in the doorway. A frail woman lay in the narrow bed that nearly filled the room. Gasping for air, one hand clutching her chest, The inhaler! Maya cried, grabbing a canister from the nightstand. She shook it empty. She dropped it and grabbed another. Empty again. No, 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 she whispered, panic rising. I thought there was one more puff. She turned to Lucas, her face twisted with fear. She needs her nebulizer solution. I don't have it. The pharmacy wouldn't refill it until payday. Lucas already had his phone out. What is it? He asked. What's the medication? Albuterol and ipratropium, Maya sobbed, gripping her mother's hand. Please, she can't breathe. Lucas didn't hesitate. He dialed a number. Get the helicopter ready, he said firmly. I need medical transport to 404 Oak Street immediately. Code red. And get Dr. Evans on the line. He stepped fully into the room, his presence filling the tight space. Maya, pack a bag. We're not waiting for a pharmacy. We're taking her to Sterling Memorial. I can't afford that, Maya cried. Lucas locked eyes with her, fierce and unwavering. You're an employee of Sterling Hospitality. We take care of our own. Now move. For the first time that night, Maya didn't argue. She saw the certainty in his eyes, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't fighting this war alone. The roar of the medical transport helicopter sliced through the stormy night. The sound terrified her and comforted her at the same time. Maya sat strapped into the jump seat, holding her unconscious mother's hand while two flight medics worked quickly and confidently to stabilize Clara's breathing. Across the cabin, Lucas Sterling sat quietly. He wasn't checking his phone or watching stock prices. He was watching Maya, his expression steady. Anchored. He had discarded his wetsuit jacket and sat in his shirt sleeves, the expensive fabric stained with rain and East End mud. When they touched down on the roof of Sterling Memorial, a medical team was already waiting. They moved Clara with such speed it made Maya's head spin. Within minutes, her mother was rushed into the trauma center, leaving Maya standing alone in the bright white hallway. Come with me, Lucas said gently, guiding her away from the trauma doors. He didn't take her to the crowded general waiting room. Instead, he led her to a private elevator. They rose to the top floor, the executive wing. The waiting area looked more like a five-star hotel lobby than a hospital. Plush leather sofas, a fireplace, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. Why are we here? Maya asked, wrapping her arms around herself. She still felt like an intruder, a waitress who had wandered into a palace. Because my name is on the building, Lucas said, pouring her a cup of hot tea from a silver service station. And because I want you comfortable while we wait. He handed her the tea. Maya accepted it, her hands finally steady. You don't have to do all this, she said quietly. An ambulance would have been enough. The helicopter, this wing. I can never repay you. Lucas sat across from her, leaning forward, elbows resting on his knees. Maya, stop thinking about cost, he said. Think about value. You showed more loyalty to a stranger's safety than my own manager showed to the company he worked for. Do you know how rare that is? Maya stared into the steam rising from the cup. I just did what was right, she said. My mom raised me that way. Even if your voice shakes, tell the truth. She raised a good daughter, Lucas said quietly. And we're going to make sure she gets the best care. Dr. Evans is the best pulmonologist in the state. He's with her now. For the next 2 hours, they sat together in the quiet luxury of the room. Lucas didn't leave. He ordered food, real food. Fresh salads and grilled salmon, a sharp contrast to the greasy meals from the Golden Steer. He asked Maya about her life, not like an employer interviewing a candidate, but like someone who genuinely wanted to know her. She told him how she'd dropped out of college to care for Clara. She talked about her dream of one day running her own catering business, about how much she loved taking chaos and organizing it into something beautiful. She talked about the restaurant too, not just what was wrong with it, but what it could be. The location is great, she said, her eyes lighting up a little. And the kitchen layout actually works. It's just dirty. And the menu's outdated. People don't want heavy, butter-soaked steaks anymore. They want farm-to-table. They want to know where their food comes from. Lucas listened closely, nodding. Everything she said confirmed what he'd already begun to see. She wasn't just an employee. She was a leader who had been buried under someone else's control. The door opened, and a tall man in a white coat stepped inside. Dr. Evans. Maya jumped to her feet so fast the tea sloshed into the saucer. Is she? She's stable, Dr. Evans said gently, smiling. We've gotten the inflammation under control. The transport saved her life literally. Another hour without oxygen, and her heart wouldn't have held out. She's sleeping now, but you can see her. Maya let out a sob of pure relief, her knees nearly giving way. Lucas was at her side instantly, steadying her with a firm hand on her shoulder. Go see her, Lucas said quietly. I have a few calls to make. I'll be here when you get back. Maya rushed past the doctor toward her mother's room. As soon as she was gone, Lucas's expression darkened. He turned toward the window, staring out at the city lights below. He'd saved the mother, but the man responsible for putting her in this position was still free. Derek had been released on bail an hour earlier. Lucas had already received the alert. He pulled out his phone. Natalie, he said, I want full security at the hospital. And send a team to the Golden Steer. I have a feeling Derek left us a few parting gifts before the cops picked him up. 2 weeks later, the Golden Steer was unrecognizable. Under Lucas's direct orders, the restaurant had been stripped down to the studs. The peeling wallpaper was gone, replaced by warm exposed brick and modern artwork. The kitchen had been completely sterilized and refitted with top-of-the-line equipment. Maya stood in the center of the dining room, holding a tablet. She wasn't wearing a frayed waitress uniform anymore. She wore a tailored navy blazer and slacks, her hair neatly styled. She looked every bit the assistant manager Lucas had appointed her to be. But her expression was tense. We have a problem, she said as Lucas walked in. He'd been visiting the site daily, overseeing the transformation himself. What is it? He asked, stepping around a ladder as a painter touched up the ceiling. Maya lifted the tablet. It's Derek. He's gone on the offensive. She pressed play. A local news segment filled the screen. Derek sat in the studio, clean-shaven, wrapped in a soft sweater, looking every bit like the victim. It's a classic case of corporate greed, Derek said to the reporter. Mr. Sterling wanted to shut the branch down so he could sell the land. He needed an excuse to fire me and deny my severance. He planted that bad meat. He staged the whole thing. The reporter nodded sympathetically. And that waitress? Derek continued. She's in on it. She's his mistress. Why else would a billionaire pay for her mother's private medical care? Lucas watched in silence, his jaw tightening until a muscle flickered in his cheek. He's desperate, Lucas said finally. He's lying. It doesn't matter if he's lying, Maya said, her voice tight with anxiety. Look at the comments. Lucas scrolled. Boycott Sterling hospitality. Billionaires crushing the little guy. That waitress is a gold digger. He's spinning the narrative, Lucas said, setting the tablet down hard on a nearby table. He knows he's going to prison for embezzlement. He's trying to force a settlement by poisoning public opinion. He called me your mistress, Maya whispered, her face burning. Lucas, I can't run this place if people think I slept my way into the job. No one who sees how you work will believe that, Lucas said firmly. But you're right, we have to kill this story. And to do that, we need proof. Not just of the bad meat, but of the embezzlement. The forensic audit found gaps, he continued. But we need the actual records. Maya chewed on her lip, thinking. Derek was paranoid, she said slowly. He didn't trust computers. He thought the IT guys were spying on him. So where did he keep the records? Lucas asked. He had a book, Maya said, a memory surfacing. A black notebook. She looked up at him. and I think I know where he hid it. He used to carry it everywhere. But the police hadn't found it on him, and it wasn't in the office. Lucas slowly scanned the restaurant. If he didn't have it on him, he said, and he didn't take it home, then it's still here. The cleaning crew gutted the office, Maya replied. It's empty. Think, Maya, Lucas urged gently. You watched him for 8 months. Where did he go when he wanted to be alone? Where did he feel safe? Maya closed her eyes, replaying the endless miserable shifts. Derek yelling. Derek pacing. Derek drinking. Then it clicked. The walk-in, she said, her eyes flying open. The freezer. He used to go in there for 20 minutes at a time, saying he was checking inventory. But he never brought a clipboard, he just stood there. Lucas turned toward the kitchen. Let's go. They walked into the gleaming new kitchen. The walk-in freezer was the only original piece of equipment they'd kept, though the motor had been replaced. Lucas pulled the heavy handle open, and a blast of icy air rushed out. The shelves inside were empty, waiting for new stock. Where? Lucas asked. Maya stepped inside, shivering, not from the cold, but from habit, from months of fear tied to that space. She scanned the metal shelves, then the floor. He was tall, she murmured. Taller than you. She looked up. There, tucked into the shadows near the ceiling, resting on top of the cooling unit housing, was a dark shape. Lucas grabbed a stepladder and climbed up. He reached into the dust and grime the cleaners had missed and pulled out a black, grease-stained moleskin notebook. He hopped down and opened it. Everything was there. June 12th. Sold 50 pounds prime rib to Jimmy's Dive Bar. Cash, $400. July 4th. Turned off cooler to save electricity. Meat smelled funny. Served anyway. August 1st. Bribed health inspector. $500. On the last page, written in a hurried scrawl. If Sterling ever finds out, blame the girl. Say she left the door open. Maya sucked in a breath as she read over his shoulder. He wrote down his own crimes, she whispered. He was so arrogant. He really thought he'd never be caught. This isn't just a ledger, Lucas said, a grim smile forming. It's his confession. And it proves he planned to frame you. He handed the notebook to Maya. You hold on to this. We're holding a press conference here at the restaurant, and you're going to present it. Me? Maya squeaked. I can't talk to the press. You stood up to me when you thought I was a construction worker, Lucas said, resting his hands on her shoulders. You stood up to Derek. You can handle a few reporters. It's time the world hears the truth from the real hero of this story. 3 months earlier, the rain hammering against the windows of the Golden Steer had sounded like a death knell echoing neglect. Leaking roofs and hopeless nights. Tonight, as the grand reopening reached its peak, the rain outside was nothing more than atmosphere. A soft rhythm tapping against double-paned glass that gleamed under the city lights. Inside, the transformation was nothing short of miraculous. Rotting carpets and peeling wallpaper were gone, replaced by rich mahogany floors and glowing walls of exposed brick. Warm ambient lighting filled the space. The air, once thick with stale grease and despair, now carried the layered aromas of rosemary-infused butter, truffle oil, and the savory, iron-rich scent of dry-aged USDA prime beef sizzling on a custom-built wood-fire grill. Maya cross-moved through the dining room, not with the frantic, hunted energy she'd carried that terrible night, but with the calm, fluid confidence of a conductor leading an orchestra. She wore a tailored navy blazer, the Sterling hospitality pin gleaming on her lapel. Her dark hair fell in soft waves around a face no longer hollowed by exhaustion. She paused at table 4, where a new server, a nervous college student named Tim, was struggling to uncork a vintage Cabernet. Here, Maya said softly, stepping in. Let the lever do the work. Don't pull with your shoulder, use your wrist. Gentle. With a quiet pop, the cork released. Tim exhaled, eyes wide with gratitude. "Thanks, Miss Cross. I'm still nervous." "You're doing great," she said warmly, smiling in a way that reached her eyes. "Just remember, they're guests in your home. Treat them that way." She watched him pour the wine and felt a swell of pride. She wasn't just managing shifts anymore. She was building a culture. The restaurant was full, not just with curious locals, but with the city's elite. The whistleblower Waitress scandal had transformed into a Cinderella story the media couldn't get enough of. The press conference, where Maya presented Derek's black ledger, exposing both the embezzlement and the food safety violations, had turned her into a local hero. Derek was now awaiting trial, his reputation torn and in tatters, while the Golden Steer had become the hardest reservation to land in the city. In the corner booth, the owner's booth, as the staff now whispered, Lucas Sterling sat watching her. A glass of sparkling water rested untouched in front of him. His attention, however, was entirely on Maya. "She's a natural, isn't she?" Lucas shifted his gaze across the table. Clara Cross sat there looking like an entirely different woman. The gray pallor of heart failure was gone, replaced by a healthy, rosy glow. She was breathing easily, her lungs clear, dressed in a beautiful silk blouse that caught the light as she moved. "She is," Lucas agreed, his voice carrying quiet respect. "I've had MBAs from Harvard run my restaurants into the ground. Maya runs this floor by feel. She anticipates problems before they happen." He glanced around the room. "I was ready to bulldoze this place, Clara. I saw it as a liability. She saw it as a home that just needed cleaning." Clara took a slow sip of water, her eyes misting as she watched her daughter gently guide a VIP guest toward the restroom. "She's always been like that," she said softly. "Even when we had nothing, when I was so sick I couldn't get out of bed, she made our lives feel dignified. She never stopped moving, never stopped trying. She carried the weight of the world on those small shoulders." "She doesn't have to carry it alone anymore," Lucas said firmly. Maya finally made her way over to their table, a tablet tucked into the crook of her arm as she scanned live inventory numbers. She looked exhilarated, tired, but in the best possible way. The good kind of tired, the kind that comes from a job done right. "Everything's running perfectly," she said, a little breathless. "Kitchen ticket times are averaging 12 minutes. The food critic from the Times just told me the risotto was transcendent. And we're already fully booked for next weekend." "Sit down, Maya," Lucas said, gesturing to the empty leather seat beside her mother. Maya hesitated, her eyes flicking toward the host stand. "I can't, Lucas. I need to check the dessert station. And the valet line is backing up." "The valet captain can handle the cars. And the pastry chef can handle dessert," Lucas interrupted, his tone gentle but firm. "Sit, please." Maya exhaled slowly, the tension finally leaving her shoulders. She slid into the booth, the cool leather settling against her back. "Okay, I'm sitting," she said with a small laugh. "Did I miss something on the P&L report? Is corporate unhappy with the labor costs?" Lucas chuckled. "The P&L is the best in the district. Corporate is terrified of you, not unhappy. No, this isn't about numbers." He reached into the inner pocket of his suit jacket and pulled out a thick, cream-colored envelope sealed with the Sterling crest. He slid it across the polished oak table. "What is this?" Maya asked, her gaze jumping between the envelope and Lucas's unreadable expression. "Open it." She broke the wax seal. Her hands, once shaking violently as she held a plate of spoiled meat, were steady now. Inside was a stack of legal documents, the paper heavy and expensive. She scanned the cover page, her brow knitting in confusion. Partnership agreement and grant of equity. Subject: The Golden Steer. Flagship branch. Recipient: Maya Cross. Allocation: 20%. Ownership stake. She read it again. Then a third time. The sounds of the restaurant, the clink of silverware, the soft jazz piano, The laughter faded into a distant hum. "Lucas," she whispered, her voice trembling as she looked up at him. "I don't understand. Is this a mistake? It says 20%. It's not a mistake," Lucas said, leaning forward. "And it's not a gift. I want to be very clear about that. This is earned equity." "But you paid for my mom's hospital bills," Maya said quickly. "You flew us in a helicopter. You gave me the assistant manager job with a salary I never dreamed of. This is too much. I can't accept ownership. I'm just a waitress who got lucky." "No," Lucas said, his voice dropping, serious and unwavering. "You are not just a waitress." He held her gaze. "You are the reason this building is still standing. You risked your livelihood to save a stranger. You exposed a criminal who was stealing from me. You rebuilt this community's trust brick by brick." He glanced around the room once more before looking back at her. "I have plenty of employees. Maya, I can hire people to follow orders. But I can't hire integrity. I can't hire the kind of courage it took to slip me that note." "I need a partner," Lucas said quietly. "I need someone with a real stake in this game, someone who can keep me honest. I can't afford to have any more red napkins slipping under my nose without me knowing." Maya stared down at the documents, tears spilling over her lashes. She turned to her mother, who was smiling through her own emotion, pride shining in her eyes as she reached out and squeezed Maya's hand. "Take it, baby," Clara whispered. "You built this." Maya looked back at Lucas. The billionaire who had once walked in looking like a beggar was now offering her a kingdom, for the first time in her life. She didn't feel like she was merely surviving. She felt like she had arrived. "Partner," Maya repeated softly, testing the word. It felt heavy, but in a good way. Solid, safe. "Partner," Lucas confirmed, a warm smile spreading across his face. "Now, as the majority shareholder, I believe I have the right to place an order with the minority owner." Maya wiped her eyes, laughing through the tears. She pulled her notepad from her pocket, slipping easily into the familiar rhythm. But this time, everything was different. She wasn't serving a master anymore. She was serving a guest in her own house. "What can I get you, Mr. Sterling?" she asked, pen poised. Lucas's eyes sparkled with mischief. "I'll take the cowboy ribeye. Medium rare." He paused, then added with a grin, "But do me a favor, make sure the chef checks the expiration date this time." Maya laughed, the sound clear and joyful, ringing above the hum of the busy restaurant. It was the laugh of a woman who had won. "Coming right up," she said. She stood and walked toward the kitchen. She didn't look back at the door she had once fled through in the rain. She looked forward toward the fire of the grill, toward her staff, and toward a future that was finally, beautifully hers. And that is the incredible story of how a single act of honesty changed a waitress's life forever. Maya risked her job to save a stranger, proving that integrity is always worth the price. Lucas Sterling learned that the most valuable asset in his company wasn't real estate or recipes, but people with the courage to do what's right. From a terrifying night in the rain to a partnership in a thriving business, Maya and Lucas showed that when you stand up against corruption, you don't just save yourself, you can save everyone around you. If you enjoyed this story of justice, karma, and life-changing twists, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a new story. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that good things still happen to good people. Thanks for watching.